this is going to be weird for everyone at home because now there's basically a voice from the beyond talking really fast and just walking to the stage where you can see these two amazing people. So we're going to basically start the final session here, right live at the venue where everyone's going to be here tomorrow with me, and without trying to destroy this. I have Hugo Raymond and also Salomé, who's one of our new city leads, who's going to be doing the Q&A with Hugo. Don't forget to send your messages, and we'll be with you guys, making sure that we get all of your questions and try to pass them so that Hugo can try and answer them. Yeah. Unfortunately, because we're a little bit late, we're probably going to be a little bit shorter on time, but we'll do our best to make sure that you guys have all the time to ask your questions. Okay, Salomé, take the mic. It's yours.
Thank you. Hi. Sorry for anything. I'm new at this. And hi, Hugo. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Very well. So let's start because we are short in time. And let's start with a simple question.
Sure.
What is the work of a designer advocate at Figma in this case?
Thank you. So, yes, my name's Hugo. I've been a designer advocate at Figma for coming up to 4 years. And the designer advocates, or should I say the advocacy team more generally, sits between marketing, products, and sales. We are in a kind of community marketing function as a team. And everyone in the advocacy team used to be either a designer, a developer, or product or project manager. So that's why as the lines start to blur over people's roles across design, engineering, and products, we're also kind of taking that into consideration, because an example would be Hiroki, who is one of the designer advocates who's based in Japan. He spoke at a JavaScript conference because he's actually a very competent developer. So he would be probably a design engineer in the capacity of a role externally. And yeah, our kind of goal and what we try and do on the advocacy team is to engage with the community through one-to-one conversations with people. We help to host and speak at various different conferences. So we do like all of the speaker preparation for Config and for other conferences that we run. And then on top of that, we do product education, so everything from working with customers before they've like decided to use Figma and also afterwards. We have a team, there's a whole enablement team that sits with the sales team, which is comprised of like onboarding managers and solution consultants and CES teams. So like any company who's worked with like with like a tool, you'll probably have come into contact with those people, and we sort of sit outside of that, but we come in when there's questions that might even be things going beyond Figma too. So conversations around things like design operations, designer developer collaboration, more advanced use cases for MCP, where we might bring developer advocates into the call as well. So yeah, that's a bit of a summary about what we do.
And recently you started a series called Airing Dirty Laundry that you can watch on Figma's.
It's on Instagram.
YouTube, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere, with designers about their concerns and ideas. And where did this idea came from? And what are the insights that you have? And what did you expect to take out of this other than a clean bench of clothes?
So the idea for Dirty Laundry, airing Dirty Laundry, came around as part of something that we have called content weeks internally. So generally speaking, when we come to produce content as an advocacy team, it's pretty much self-driven, self-enabled, So Miggy is particularly good at this. Like everyone's seen a lot of Miggy's videos. It's really high craft, really high polish. Miggy obviously used to be a professor before, hence the Professor Miggy. He used to teach design. He really knows how to kind of deliver to that level of quality. But sometimes we want to do things that maybe expand beyond the reach of us just doing something directly to camera or recording ourselves. And these content weeks give us an opportunity to come up with ideas where we can sort of open the door to what else we might be able to do. So I had been, like probably many other people, Subway take and Chicken Shop date pilled, I guess would probably be the best way to describe it, and was like, there must be an interesting way that we can deliver this as a format where we start to interview and speak to designers. So I pitched the idea internally, and we hired a launderette at the Barbican. So if you've ever been to London before, it's a really amazing housing complex that was built in the 1970s. If you're into brutalist architecture, and the launderette is used quite often for things like fashion shoots and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, this is going to be a really cool background for us to shoot it in. And so this idea of like airing dirty laundry came as like, how can we get designers to present takes, and for us to have like an intelligent discussion over this that's not just something that feels like that can still work as a social format, but we can actually still discuss things with a degree of intent. And that's really just to give those designers an opportunity to have a platform to be able to share vent their concerns and their frustrations about the industry, but also to just see what kind of topics are resonating with the community, which is where you kind of see the engagement back from people commenting on like the reels and stuff on Instagram, or on the YouTube shorts. So the response was great. Like it was cool to see a lot of the things that people were saying in response to that. Like I think vibe coding, the one that Carl was talking about, and what Laura was referring to in terms of world-class designers in particular, were definitely topics that I think a lot of people related to, and some of the challenges that were associated with that. But yeah, I hope we get an opportunity to try and do it with maybe developers, and also to do it with product managers as well, because I think it would be cool to see how much the takes have overlaps now, or whether they're actually quite different.
Being part of such an active and connected community like Figma's, what do you feel this affects how people interact with your tool and your contents?
So we are very lucky that Figma has historically been a community-led product. It's grown from the feedback that we've had, and an example of that in the past, we've run a series of campaigns around something called Little Big Updates, which was really an opportunity to look at the feedback that we were receiving online through the support center, through forums, from all of the things that you've shared with us, to kind of like show that we're acting upon it. The reality is the rate of pace of which we're releasing stuff now means that to try and consolidate that down into a single marketing moment just doesn't make sense anymore. The rate of change, particularly for things related to Make right now, is insane, quite frankly. It's wild how quickly that team are working, and there's just like there are things changing weekly, sometimes even bi-weekly, like twice a week, that we're getting releases out, and it's just really amazing to see that something that people were asking for around config when Make came out, for instance, and in particular, like obviously I think everyone's expectations were that you would be able to go from Make back into Figma Design, and the fact that we released that I think now 2 weeks ago just goes to show how quickly the team are able to turn some of these functionalities around. And I think it's also worth people remembering that like Make as an initiative internally was only started 3 months before config. So a version that was available in beta was released in 3 months, and that to me is just like wild. This is what's kind of incredible about how Figma operates as a company, is that there is this extremely strong tone of being reactive to feedback and wanting to engage as much as possible. We know we can always do better. We know that there's things that people are like, why doesn't it do this? Why doesn't it do that? We hear it loud and clear, and we are working as hard as possible to get as many of those things done, because I think people want to be able to, like, I think it's cool to go and explore a bunch of different tools, and there's a lot of other tools out there that do some incredible stuff, but there's also like a lot of time and energy that you've invested into using a particular tool, and you kind of want to see aspects of that sometimes try and succeed where possible, so that it doesn't disrupt your workflow too much. So we recognize that there's certain things, we're probably a bit late on stuff around make in particular, but I think that it's really cool to see how we also have opportunities to do things with MCP too, and like looking at how we might be able to bring MCP into make as well. There's like so much opportunity right now. I don't think anyone has any great assurances of like this is directionally the direction that we're going to head in, because so much of the underlying technology of how models operate is also changing. I know that's kind of a bit of I've gone on a detour on that question there, but hopefully that's answered it in part.
Yeah, the next question was going to say, to be that I studied multimedia and I had some design classes, but I always considered myself as a non-designer. But Figma brought back my love for designing, and I used pretty much every day the several Figma tools to expand my creativity. And what do you think Figma makes these tools so special, and that helps so many people like me to feel more empowered to do design and create things? And I feel that make now can expand this even more, and you already said that. So I think the detour was was perfect for this. And so we can shift now for the next question that we had here. And oh, we have a question from the audience. Sure. That do you guys have a simple answer to what is an MCP?
Yeah, sure.
So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It is a standard that was developed by Anthropic, who produced Claude, which you might have used as a sort of a chatbot interface, which has a large language model. And the best way to think about MCPs is that they are like APIs specifically for large language models. So when we look at something like Figma's MCP, what it's doing is it's extracting the structured information inside of Figma and it's presenting that back to whichever large language model you want to interact with. So if you want to use Claude, you can use Claude Sonnet 4.5 is the latest one that they have. You could use Codex, which is OpenAI's one for writing code. You could use Gemini. All of these large language models can leverage essentially the structure of information that's provided in an MCP as a way to interpret it in the best way possible. To sort of go a level deeper on MCPs, I think what's really interesting about them is that they can be used in sort of concert or like together. So you can start to amalgamate a lot of them in a way that requires fairly little configuration, which has always been the challenge for APIs. So APIs have always been a way to allow computers essentially to speak to one another. But you would have to know the structure of that API in depth in order to be able to program it in such a way that those systems could speak to each other. With MCPs, there is some configuration that is required, but it is minimal by comparison to how you use an API. And I think that that is one of the reasons why they're opening up so much opportunity for what you can integrate and bring together for people who are less technical. So if you haven't got a developer background, MCPs can still be useful. And I think we're going to start to see some very, very interesting stuff happening within that space.
I hope this answer helped. For me, it helped a lot. And looking at all those evolutions, what would you say Figma's role is going to be in this new world of design and product development?
So we one of the things that Dylan spoke about at Config, which I think ties very nicely to how we think about Draw, is we recognize that what design can be capable of is far greater than some of the tools that we have currently at our disposal. And so I think we're really keen to make sure that we give designers the right tools to be as expressive as they need to be, while simultaneously thinking about how that translates into an application that works. And those forms of expressive mediums can be stuff like draw, it can be things like make, it can be things like code layers, which is essentially like a mini make that sits inside of sites that allows you to produce functional and modifiable interaction patterns. And we also acquired a company called Modify, who produced like a tool for essentially doing very advanced animation work in the browser. And I think what I'm optimistic about is in amongst all of the stuff that's happening around AI, which admittedly is kind of what I'm talking about tomorrow, this idea of the importance of craft and the quality of it needs to shine through, and that's only possible if the tools are there at your disposal. But the table stakes for creating have changed fairly drastically in that the tools that we use are now also helping us make our own tools. By that, I mean some of the cases of things that I've seen with a tool like Make is people using it to make a tool. And that's really interesting because historically, that has been something that has been the preserve of developers or designers who feel competent writing code. And whilst it's not necessarily going to create the fully robust production ready version of something, it it helps you solve a problem or something that you would come up as a blocker against that gives you greater autonomy to deliver certain things you didn't think were possible before. To make that something that's tangible rather than just like saying these things in this very like broad sense, an example might be that you might build out like one of the examples that I've seen that Jake, who's one of our developer advocates, built was literally just creating an interaction for like a holographic card animation, and it was able to then export, create a tool to be able to export the JSON, which is essentially like structured data that could then be interpreted in code to replicate the animations that were shown inside of Make. He is a developer, so he obviously has an understanding of how some of these things work, but that is equally possible now in most instances by designers who see themselves as slightly more technical. And for those that don't, you can have a conversation with AI to try and learn how some of this stuff works. So how you get enabled to be able to do that stuff is really amazing. So there's the tools that we're creating, there's the tools that you're creating for yourself, there's the prototypes that you're building that get an idea out there quicker. Like we're at it's at this point where it does feel like anything is possible, which is really incredible. I think the thing that what we've really got to see change is really this aspect around quality. So for designers who are very at the top of their game and know their craft, they want to be very intentional about the direction that they want to talk about how AI should produce something for them. And oftentimes the results that they're getting returned are not to the exacting standards that they're looking for. And that's often, they might try and do some of those things manually, but they might come a point where there is still that slight skills gap for something that they don't know how to do. And this is a way of kind of fast tracking some of that. And that's sometimes where the frustration happens is this, I'm using a prompt to produce something for me, and what I actually want to be able to do is direct manipulation. And that is also something that is going to change drastically, is like the only modality that we have at the moment for most tools is text to end result. But actually what we want is more direct manipulation, because that's actually a much more efficient way of being able to do something. So all of this, I'm going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow, but this whole idea about how we build context windows that gives the models greater degrees of constraints, I think should really start to empower people who are advanced practitioners, whilst also helping to support more junior people to operate in the tooling that's created by advanced practitioners, and to work out where those guidelines are.
I for sure have to try a bit more of Make because I didn't have the time to explore it well enough already. But I've seen amazing things from the Figma community, and Bruno already did amazing things, and he was shout out on the Figma stage, and I was really impressed with the things that he did. And we had a sneak peek for Hugo's talk tomorrow. Anyone has questions? Ooh, we have a question in Spanish. Vámonos.
Do you want me to do the answer in Spanish? I can.
Bruno. Okay, yes, the answer. Acabamos de vivir la década del diseño donde Figma fue protagonista muy fuerte. Estamos ante una década de la AI. We just lived through a design decade where Figma was a big protagonist. Are we at the beginning of an AI decade? And it's from David Vilca. Hola, David.
Hola David. Bueno, en mi opinión, y esto es un poco fuera de Figma solamente, pero la importancia de diseño sigue, en mi opinión. No es solamente porque el diseño puede existir fuera de IA. Yo sé que en la experiencia más mundial, en los casos de, bueno, los pensamientos del público, imagino que la mayoría de las conversaciones se entornan más sobre el tema de IA que el diseño. Pero lo que he visto en las experiencias creadas solamente con la IA, faltan no sé cómo se dice, pero the touch, como la toca, el toque, sí, el toque humano. Y lo que me interesa mucho es que estamos en un momento eh, de, de tener más conversaciones existenciales sobre la importancia de algo que no se puede medir. Y esto representa un poco la parte del craft en que yo voy a hablar mañana, porque esto es algo en que necesito explicarme más en inglés, porque si no yo voy a decir cosas que no, de una forma menos exacta. So I'm going to do this next bit in English, but I think that we've always struggled to talk about I think designers always struggle to sometimes talk about the value that it brings, particularly in the context of where we've been forced in a direction of defining things around metrics. And I think actually now that is our strength. Now I think that there is an opportunity to show this based on the idea of feeling and emotion. So I think actually what we're in is more the decade of feeling and emotion, and how we think about design's importance in helping to support better experiences for those reasons alone. Because when the production of software is so cheap, design can be the differentiator between what is essentially produced as the kind of the average middle that AI can produce, and then it takes for a human to intervene in that process and to be able to provide that lens to create something that feels more tailored to humanity, more customized. So there'll be things that will need to be produced for robots and from an agentic perspective, and then there will be things that will need to still be produced for humans. And it will be interesting to see what that dynamic is and where the emotion plays an important role.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Muchas gracias por la pregunta en español. No, pregunta, no estábamos esperando. Estoy muy desentrenada en mi español, pero Hugo estaba buenísimo. Now, my assistant, it's not giving me more questions. Let us.
We could do one more.
Oh, wait, he's writing something. He's writing. I see the 3 dots. Maybe if he. I think we. Okay, so I don't think there are more questions coming, and we are already a bit late. Bruno, do you want to come here on stage to say goodbye? Or okay, he's going to pick up on that end. For us here, see you tomorrow for the ones that are coming to Layers in person. Thank you so much for hearing us. Thank you so much, Hugo, for being here with us. And you want to say anything to people at home?
Sure. Yeah, just keep giving us feedback. I'd love to connect with more people. I know that I need to do a better job of checking my LinkedIn direct messages. So give me some more reasons to do so.
People on LinkedIn.
And accepting more people on LinkedIn. It can be a bit of an uphill battle, and that's something that I definitely want to spend more time doing. So please give me the excuse to do so, and then I can spend more time with the community. But yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Back to you, Bruno.